The hum of the spacecraft was a low, constant thrum beneath Elira's boots as she stepped into the neural chamber. Walls shimmered with cool blue light, lined with panels that pulsed gently in rhythm with the ship's core. She breathed in, an automatic gesture, though her species had long evolved past needing air in the traditional sense. Still, habits were comforting. And today, she needed comfort. Two beings flanked the chamber's far end, a human and the guard. The latter stood motionless, an obsidian-skinned sentinel with eyes like still water. The former sat restrained in a low chair, posture too relaxed for someone in captivity. Commander Jace Rennick. The name meant little to Elira, but to the humans he was something of a myth. War hero, mutineer, madman. She crossed the chamber slowly. The neural table flickered to life at her approach, projecting swirling threads of energy between them. She didn't look at Jace, not yet. Instead, she studied his neural profile. It was dense, chaotic. Human minds always were, but this was a storm wrapped in flesh. "You volunteered," she said quietly, finally meeting his gaze. Jace smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. Curious minds make poor diplomats. "You want to know why I did it?" "I'm here for truth." "That's a dangerous thing to want." Elira raised her hand and placed her fingers on the console. Lines of energy arced up, crackling between her fingertips and the table. The light dimmed around them. She extended her mind, carefully, methodically. The initial connection was always the same, the flicker of memories, the emotional palette, the shape of a person's identity. Like dipping into a river and feeling its temperature. Jace's river was freezing. She pushed past the outer layers, memories of a mother, long dead, the academy, full of ambition and youthful arrogance, a battlefield under twin moons, lit with fire and blood. Her breath caught at the sharpness of it all. Emotions weren't just felt, they were experienced as if they were hers. She saw a young soldier die in his arms. She heard the snap of orders he never wanted to give. Guilt was everywhere, like oil on water, impossible to wash away. Then something shifted. The current pulled harder. Elira fell. Deeper than she intended. Deeper than she had ever gone. The darkness was not absence but saturation, full of screaming, flickering memories that defied structure. Faces contorted in rage and sorrow. Children crying. Soldiers burning. And a single voice, his voice, over and over, "I had no choice." "No," she whispered aloud, trying to sever the connection. But the mind was no longer passive. It was aware. She saw herself through his eyes. Alien. Intruder. A voyeur. And then the memory turned into something else, something built. A place that didn't exist, formed from his psyche alone, a dark hallway lined with doors. Each one locked. Each one marked with names she couldn't read. One door stood ajar. She reached for it. And something reached back. The scream tore from her before she could stop it, raw and primal, a sound her species was not meant to make. She stumbled back from the console, eyes wide, hands shaking. Jace hadn't moved. "What did you see?" he asked, voice low. Elira tried to speak, but no words came. The memory, the presence, it clung to her like a second skin. Not just what he'd done, but what he'd felt about it. Regret so total it had a gravity of its own. The scream echoed again, this time only in her mind. She turned and left the chamber without a word, her footsteps faster than before. Her superiors would demand a report. Protocols required observation, healing. She didn't care. Something inside Jace Rennick was alive. And now, it was inside her too. The silence in Elira's quarters was thick, oppressive, like a blanket soaked in ice water. She sat on the floor, legs folded, hands trembling on her knees. The scream hadn't stopped. Not the sound. Her throat was raw, her voice silenced hours ago, but the sensation. It was still inside her, rattling like a ghost against her bones. She had been trained for neural contact since childhood. Her kind excelled in empathy, their minds evolved for communion, for truth shared freely between beings. But humans were jagged. Their thoughts didn't flow, they tore. And Jace Rennick's mind was not just jagged. It was fractured glass, and she had stepped on it barefoot. The door chimed. She didn't move. It chimed again, more insistent this time. With effort, she stood and opened it. Vera stood on the other side, mentor, neural therapist, and the closest thing Elira had to family on this cold diplomatic vessel. Her expression was unreadable, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed concern. "You should be in recovery," Vera said gently. Elira didn't answer. Vera stepped in, looked around, and frowned. "You haven't engaged the restorative field. You haven't even reported in." "I can't," Elira whispered, voice hoarse. "It's still in me." Vera blinked. "What do you mean?" "The memory. The presence. His scream. I can't separate from it." Vera sat beside her. "You went too deep. You touched a trauma node without a stabilizing loop. That's dangerous, even with familiar species." Elira turned her face away. "It wasn't just trauma. It was alive. It looked at me. Memories don't look back. This one did." They sat in silence. Outside the ship's viewport, a nebula coiled in soft pinks and purples. Elira watched it shimmer, trying to breathe in sync with its slow movement. "He wanted me to see it," she said finally. "Rennick." "Yes." "He didn't resist the link. He led me there. Like a path had already been laid for me to follow." Vera hesitated, then stood. "I'll file the report. For now, you're grounded. No more sessions. Not until you're clear." But Elira knew she wouldn't be. Not unless she understood what had happened. 3 days passed before she returned to the cell. Jace was standing this time, arms folded, watching the security feed. When she entered, he didn't turn to greet her. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I know. They told me you screamed for 17 minutes straight after the link." "That true?" She didn't respond. Jace finally faced her, eyes dark but alert. "I warned you." "No. You baited me." His brow twitched. "Maybe." Elira stepped closer. "Why?" Jace leaned against the wall. "You don't get it. You people, you're clean. You touch pain, study it, learn from it. But you've never lived in it. You've never had it burned so deep it rewires your thoughts. I thought maybe, just maybe, you needed to feel what we do. What it's like to wake up with ghosts pressing against your ribs." "That's not truth. That's cruelty." "No. It's survival." She stared at him. Not as an empath, not as a diplomat, but as something else. Something changed. "You made me feel guilt that wasn't mine," she said. "Sorrow that didn't belong to me. I can't shake it." "Then good," he said quietly. "Now maybe you'll stop calling what we are primitive." She flinched. Not at the words, but at the truth in them. Later that night, she returned to the neural library. The ship's AI scanned and translated terabytes of human psychology, texts, journals, therapy archives, wartime diaries. She read until her eyes blurred. Humans didn't contain emotion. They housed it like an animal, fed it, feared it, fought with it. Their pain was not linear. It looped. It repeated. Jace's scream was not a single event. It was a pattern, a recursive echo forged in war and failure. One passage caught her attention. PTSD is not a wound that heals. It is a door that never closes. A door. Just like the one in his mind. The next morning, she filed a false maintenance report and re-entered the neural chamber. Jace was already there, as if expecting her. "No link this time," she said. "Just talk." He tilted his head. "Why would I help you now?" "Because you want someone to understand." He hesitated, then sat. They spoke for hours. Not about war or politics, but about dreams. Nightmares. About the moment he gave an order that got children killed. About how his people hailed him as a hero, never knowing what it cost. "After that day," Jace said, "I stopped being a person. I became a symbol. And symbols don't get to scream. But I did. Inside. Every day." Elira closed her eyes. The scream wasn't a sound. It was a presence, a manifestation of guilt so massive it had formed its own gravity. It didn't want to be heard. It wanted to be shared. When she left, she no longer felt alone in her mind. The scream was still there. But it had changed. It had found something new. A listener. The mirror in Elira's quarters no longer showed her alone. Her reflection was intact, same pale skin iridescent under the ship's dim light, same soft blue veins flickering beneath the surface, but her eyes held something foreign. A weight, or perhaps a shadow, coiled behind the pupils like smoke. She reached out, fingertips brushing the cold glass, half expecting another hand to meet hers from the other side. Jace Rennick's memories had embedded more than images. They had rewritten something in her. She'd stopped dreaming in her own language. Her thoughts, once laced with the soft fluidity of empathic script, now came in harsh, angular syllables. English. She'd taken to pacing, restless, unable to sit in meditation for more than seconds. Music felt too hollow. Light too bright. Food. Tasteless. She wasn't becoming human, but she was no longer only what she had been. Worse still, the scream had gone quiet. Not vanished. Silenced. It watched now, dormant, like an animal waiting for movement. She felt it coil when she passed others in the corridor, their minds brushed too briefly for her comfort. She could almost sense it lean forward when she heard someone raise their voice. Like it fed off dissonance. And in the dark, when she closed her eyes, she dreamed of fire. She returned to Vera once, hoping her mentor could still pull her back. But the moment Vera touched her hand, she recoiled. "There's something else in you," Vera whispered, horror creeping into her voice. "It's not a memory. It's a resonance. That's not supposed to be possible." Elira said nothing. She already knew. She began seeing shapes, symbols, traced in condensation on glass, etched in the patterns of her neural monitor. Circles within circles, jagged lines through them, like scars mapped in geometry. The ship's AI detected no anomalies. Her neural scanner returned clean results. But she could feel it. One night, she found herself at Jace's door again. Not by command. Not by protocol. Just instinct. He didn't speak at first. He simply studied her with that same quiet calm that unnerved her more than shouting ever could. "You feel it now," he said. "It's more than feeling. It always was." She stepped inside. "I need to go back," she said. He shook his head. "It'll consume you." "Then why hasn't it consumed you?" Jace looked at her, and for a moment, his expression cracked. Beneath the soldier's mask, she saw exhaustion. Not the kind sleep could fix. The kind that lived in the marrow. "Because I made peace with it," he said. "I stopped fighting and made it a part of me. That scream isn't separate from who I am. It is who I am." She lowered her gaze. "But it's not mine." He stood, walked to the neural interface, and ran his fingers across the console. It flared to life, casting the chamber in pale light. "You want to get rid of it," he said. "But the only way out is through. You have to finish the link." Elira hesitated. Every protocol screamed against it. Every survival instinct warned her she was already too close to the edge. But a deeper voice, one born in the fire of his mind, whispered closer. She placed her hand on the panel. Their minds connected instantly this time. No resistance. No filters. She didn't fall. She plunged. The hallway was back, longer, darker, more twisted than before. The doors had multiplied, some broken open, others sealed with chains of thought too old to undo. Jace's presence was beside her, but not guiding. He was merely there, another echo. They reached the door. The one ajar. She opened it fully. Inside, the room stretched impossibly, larger than logic allowed. A battlefield and a bedroom. A child's drawing and a nuclear flash. Blood, fire, a lullaby. And at the center stood the source, a figure. Neither Jace nor herself. A thing made of memory, guilt, and rage. Its mouth open in silent scream, its eyes mirrors of her own. It saw her, and it moved. The scream returned, not as sound, but as force. It crushed thought, ruptured memory. She saw herself as a child. Her mother's arms. Her first neural touch. Each image shattered under the pressure of his pain. But Elira didn't run. She stepped forward. "You are not me," she said. The entity paused. "But I carry you." She reached out. Not to destroy, not to reject. To embrace. The entity lunged. There was no fight, only fusion. Thought melted into thought. Emotion into emotion. And then, silence. Not emptiness. Stillness. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the chamber. Jace stood across from her, breathing heavily. He looked at her not with pity, but with understanding. "It stopped," she said. He nodded. "Not because it left. Because it found a place to rest." Elira turned away from the console, eyes no longer wide with fear. There was something else in them now. Depth. Stillness. And the faintest trace of sorrow. She had touched a human mind. And now, she could never go back. The ship had grown quiet since the fusion. Not by design. Its systems still hummed, its engines still pulsed, but in Elira's perception, everything felt softer. As if the walls themselves respected her silence. Or feared it. She moved differently now. More grounded, less fluid. Her steps, once marked by gentle elegance, had adopted a certain weight. A cadence of purpose. Something she had absorbed from Jace, perhaps, or from the presence that had lived within him for so long. That weight was part of her now, stitched between her thoughts like iron thread through silk. The crew noticed. Whispers followed her in corridors, glances traded behind half-lowered lids. She was no longer just the envoy, the empath. She was something else. Touched. Altered. They had begun to fear her. And oddly, she didn't blame them. Vera summoned her again. This time, there was no warmth in the gesture. No comfort, no veiled invitation to healing. Only duty. "You accessed the chamber against orders," Vera said, seated behind the sterile glow of the tribunal desk. "You linked with a volatile subject after being declared unfit. Do you deny this?" "I do not." "And do you understand the consequence?" "I do." There was a long pause. Vera's gaze, once a gentle tide, now crashed like stone. "You were chosen for this mission because you were balanced, disciplined, open. That has changed." "I'm still open," Elira said softly. "I just see more now." "Then tell me, what exactly did you see in that man's mind that was worth this risk?" Elira inhaled deeply, choosing each word as if placing stones in a river. "I saw a soul held together by grief. A life built from the rubble of failure. He was not broken. He was unfinished." "And now you think you've finished him?" Vera asked, tone cutting. "No. I've allowed him to finish me." The tribunal chamber fell into silence. The decision, they claimed, would take days. But Elira knew already what the outcome would be. She was no longer safe in her role. And perhaps that was just. That night, she found Jace standing in the observation deck, looking out over the stretch of stars. He didn't speak, didn't acknowledge her. He didn't have to. "You know they'll exile me," she said. He nodded. "I suspected. I think they're afraid I'll bring your infection to others." He smiled faintly. "Not an infection. A reminder." She stepped beside him. "Of what?" "That even peacekeepers bleed." They stood in silence, the stars vast and disinterested. "You're calmer," he said, turning to study her profile. "I am." "You found a way to live with it?" "No," she said after a moment. "I found a way to listen." There was no grand revelation. No triumphant music. Only two figures, bound by something deeper than biology, standing in the quiet of a ship neither of them truly belonged to. Eventually, orders came. Elira was removed from her diplomatic post and reassigned to the periphery sectors, where her presence would be less disruptive. No charges. No ceremony. Just distance. Jace remained in containment, though the walls around him had changed. They no longer seemed like prison bars. More like walls of a monastery. A place of waiting. Of penance. The last time she saw him, they shared no words. Only a glance. That was enough. As she boarded the departure vessel, she felt the presence within stir, not in pain, not in protest, but in awareness. A shared silence, no longer screaming, but watching. Waiting. She touched a human mind, and it touched her back. What it gave her was no gift. It was not power, not knowledge, not even wisdom. It was truth. And truth, she had learned, was not always something you survived. But it was something you carried. And she would carry it, wherever the stars led.